because he's a black man within the
So are you going to take
compound.
his word over mine?
I'm concerned about what you said. You stopped him because he's black. That was the first thing that you said. Am I wrong in saying that?
He matched
You had
the
a
description, sir. He matched the description.
No, you said, look at him, he's black. That seems to be the only reason why you stopped Mr. Redvine. He's sitting on a park bench as a black man, minding his own business.
It was a bright afternoon in Greenwood Park, the kind of day where people lounged under trees, children played on swings, and the world seemed at peace. Mr. Redvine, a 32-year-old black man, sat quietly on a wooden bench, scrolling through his phone and enjoying his day off. His bright red jacket and clean white sneakers stood out against the lush greenery, a peaceful figure in an ordinary scene. That peace was shattered when Officer Rick Walters, a white police officer with a reputation for aggressive behavior, approached Redvine. "You fit the description!" Walters barked, his hand already resting on the holster of his gun. "But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below."
I'm sorry, where'd you get stopped, sir?
I was sitting on a park bench
Okay.
and I was doing my meditation, and when he came up, he was bothering me, and when he startled me, actually. So when I opened my eyes, it was just him. I looked at him like he was crazy, like, what are you doing? You see me sitting here paused, like, what's the problem? All of a sudden, he started asking me all these questions, and I'm sitting here like, you know, what's going on here? Like, now I'm feeling like I'm threatened. So I'm like, I feel threatened. I ain't gotta ask you none of your questions. Call a supervisor here. I guess that must have made him really mad, because that's when he went off the handle.
Redvine looked up, confused. "Description of what?" Walters, without offering further clarification, demanded Redvine stand and submit to questioning. Redvine, knowing his rights, calmly asked, "Am I being detained? What's your probable cause?" The officer's demeanor shifted to aggression. "I don't need a lecture," he snapped. "Stand up now." Despite Redvine's insistence that he'd done nothing wrong, Walters forcefully cuffed him, causing a scene that drew the attention of nearby parkgoers. Redvine's protests and the murmurs of onlookers fell on deaf ears. Walters smugly declared, "You match the description of a suspect, black male, in a red jacket." It wasn't until Redvine was hauled to the station and questioned that it became clear there had been no actual evidence linking him to any crime. He was released hours later, humiliated and shaken.
He said I did some kind of crime that I still don't even know what I did. Said he's had some kind of witness.
So I'm sorry, sir. You said that you were accused of a crime and you don't know what the crime was?
No, he never told me. I'm here, I don't know what I'm here for.
But Redvine wasn't going to let this slide. Within weeks, Redvine filed a lawsuit against Walters and the police department, citing racial profiling, unlawful arrest, and emotional distress. As the case gained traction, it made headlines, sparking outrage in the community. Activists, legal experts, and civil rights organizations rallied around Redvine, turning the lawsuit into a symbol of the fight against systemic racism. During the trial, Walters maintained his arrogance, claiming he was just doing his job. But his defense quickly unraveled when body cam footage was played in court. The footage showed Walters approaching Redvine with hostility, his tone accusatory from the start. There was no mention of a legitimate description other than Redvine's race and clothing. A damning moment came when Redvine's lawyer asked Walters, "Did you have any evidence linking my client to this alleged crime other than his race and his red jacket?" Walters hesitated before responding. He looked suspicious. The courtroom gasped. Redvine's lawyer pressed on, revealing that the actual suspect, a black man wearing a red hoodie, had already been apprehended earlier that day in a completely different part of the city. Walters had no justification for the arrest beyond his own biases. The jury deliberated for less than a day. Walters was found guilty of racial profiling and violating Redvine's civil rights. The court ordered Walters to pay substantial damages to Redvine, while the police department faced additional penalties for failing to properly train and supervise its officers. But the consequences didn't stop there. Walters was suspended without pay and, after a departmental review, was detained for falsifying reports and abusing his authority. The very system he had relied on to protect him turned against him. For Redvine, the victory was bittersweet. While the settlement brought some closure, he was more focused on the larger issue. Using his newfound platform, he became an advocate for police accountability and racial justice, speaking at events and working with local organizations to push for reform. Meanwhile, Walter's career was over. Detained and disgraced, he became a cautionary tale for those who abused their power. Greenwood Park became a different place after the trial. People of all races began gathering there more freely, knowing that one man's courage had forced a reckoning. As for Mr. Redvine, he continued to visit the park, sitting on the same bench, a symbol of resilience against injustice.
In the area where this gentleman was sitting at the bench at the park, and he matched the description of the criminal.
Okay.
There was a robbery and a kidnapping, all within the same area. I see this man sitting there with his eyes closed. I don't know what he's doing. We got a call from a lady in the park saying that there was suspicious activity. I picked him up, matched the description. He confessed to the whole thing. The kidnapping, so I don't understand where his story is coming from.
Mr. Ortega, when you said that he confessed, hold on, sir, remember what I said. Now, when you said that he confessed, did he confess there on the scene, or was there a different location?
There was a different location, but
what was the different location?
Back at the precinct. That's what he agreed to. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
But he matched the description.
I'm just curious. Did you take him? When you got to the precinct, did he make his claim then? Did you take him to the interview room where this happened at?
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did it in the interview.
Months after the trial, Mr. Redvine's life had changed in ways he hadn't anticipated. The media attention had turned him into a local hero, though he often said he wasn't looking for fame, just fairness. People would stop him in the park, on the street, or at the grocery store to thank him for standing up for what was right. One evening, as Redvine sat on that same park bench, a young boy approached him with his mother. The boy, no older than 10, looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Are you the man from TV? The one who stood up to the bad cop?" the boy asked. Redvine smiled warmly. "I guess you could say that. But more importantly, I stood up for what's fair. That's something everyone can do." His mother chimed in, her voice full of gratitude. "Thank you. What you did gives people like us hope that things can change." Redvine nodded, humbled. "That's why I did it. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever felt powerless." Meanwhile, Officer Rick Walters was adjusting to his new reality behind bars. In his quieter moments, the former officer was forced to confront the choices that had led him there. He had spent years wielding his badge as a weapon of power rather than a tool of protection. Now, stripped of that authority, he had nothing but time to reflect. The police department, under intense scrutiny, began implementing new measures, including mandatory bias training and independent oversight committees. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a step toward restoring trust in the community. Redvine found himself at the forefront of these changes. He attended city council meetings, spoke at rallies, and worked with grassroots organizations to advocate for lasting reform. He became a mentor to young people in the neighborhood, encouraging them to understand their rights and to use their voices. One evening, as the sun set over the park, a group of high school students gathered around Redvine, eager to hear his story. He told them about the day Walters had wrongfully arrested him, about the humiliation and fear he'd felt, and about the decision to fight back. "It wasn't easy," he admitted. "There were moments I wanted to give up, but I realized if I didn't stand up, it would keep happening. To me, to someone else, to someone like you. So I kept going." One of the students raised his hand. "Do you think things will ever really change?" Redvine thought for a moment before replying. "Change doesn't happen overnight. But every time we stand up, every time we refuse to accept injustice, we move a little closer, and one day things will be better. Not perfect, but better. It's up to us to keep pushing." As the students left, inspired and determined, Redvine stayed on the bench, watching the stars begin to dot the night sky. The park, once a place of injustice, had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the darkest moments could lead to something brighter. For Redvine, the fight wasn't over, but he was ready. He had faced injustice head-on and turned it into a beacon of change. And as long as there were others willing to stand with him, he knew progress was possible.